Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Bible study. Welcome to Psalm 57. There's a free PDF that you can download on our website if you would like it, as there is every day. And you can now get 57 chapters out there. Hopefully, one day we'll finish the whole book of Psalms. It's quite a lengthy one, but let's talk about Psalm 57. The author is once again David, and once again, there are no New Testament references back to Psalm 57. Two themes to talk about. Number one, God provides an impenetrable refuge for those who trust in him, and God is greater than even the fiercest of enemies. Now, for our definition section, we have three, and some of them I can provide some clarity on, but a couple of them, like yesterday, scholars are still trying to figure out. So the first one is liar. This appears in verse 8, not L-I-A-R, like you're telling untruths, but this is L-Y-R-E. This is a small handheld string instrument with like a U shape. Has like a crossbar going across with strings attached to it. It's similar to the harp in that the musician plucks the strings to create the music. Now, in verse 1, we have some interesting terms. The first one, according to do not destroy. This is in the introductory information there. This phrase appears in Psalm 57, Psalm 58, and Psalm 59, but the exact meaning of it is not clear. And that also goes for this word miktam, which we saw in the last chapter. Miktam, no one knows the precise meaning of it, and hopefully one day some archaeologists will dig up some ancient document or something and it'll give us some clarity on it. But as for now, Miktam is still somewhat of a mystery. You can read some theories online if you're interested in maybe some ideas that people have about it. As we look over at our outline on page number 2, we have some context for Psalm 57 that helps us interpret it, helps us to know what's happening. David wrote Psalm 57 when he was hiding from King Saul in a cave. Now, this is probably a reference to the time when David was at the cave of Adullam in 1 Samuel 22, 1 and 2. Our section heading today is Let Your Glory Be Over All the Earth. You'll see that phrase appear a couple times in this psalm. 11 verses to talk about today, just one section. Psalm 57 opens with David stating his reliance on God as his soul's refuge. We're going to see a very familiar pattern, very familiar themes to some of David's other psalms. So he begins by making this expression that God is his refuge. Quote, "O God, be merciful to me, for in you my soul takes refuge. In the shadow of your wings I will take refuge, till the storms of destruction pass by." David knew that God had a purpose for his life. He knew that because God had told him that he was going to be king. He'd been anointed king already. And he knew that God would protect him until that purpose had been fulfilled. David described his enemies as lions who had spears and arrows for teeth and tongues as sharp as swords in verse 4. David prayed for God to be glorified above all the earth and heavens. Whatever happened to David, he wanted God's name to be glorified. But I think he also knew that his salvation would come from the fact that God was superior to everything on earth and to all of his enemies. The final 4 verses of the psalm are an expression of worship and confidence in God. David was rousing his soul to worship. So I'll just read verses 8 through 11 because I think it's better than summarizing them. Psalm 57, 8 and 11. Awake, my soul, awake, O harp and lyre. I will awake the dawn. I will give thanks to you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing praises to you among the nations, for your steadfast love is great to the heavens. Your faithfulness to the clouds. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. So that is Psalm 57. For the application today, I want to actually take it more from the context of the psalm rather than the psalm itself. So we'll look back at 1 Samuel chapter 22. When David was at the cave of Adullam, God sent him help. As he was requesting in the psalm. But I wonder if it was the help that David imagined when he was writing this psalm. Let me read you the first 2 verses of of 1 Samuel 22. David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul, gathered to him, and he became commander over them. And there were with him about 400 men. David may have expected a more magnificent deliverance. God can do whatever he wants. So certainly he's going to send me some great great army or something, well-trained men, but God gave him instead the distressed, the debtors, and what some might consider to be kind of the riffraff of society. And the application, I think, for us is that when we pray to God for help, we need to be open to the fact that God's helping hand may not look quite the way that we imagine. The answer to our prayers may come in a different form than what we want or what we expected. So it's important for us not to insist on our way, but to trust and to embrace God's way.